Good evening. I hope y'all are having an awesome Sunday. I am here with my daughter Vivian and my daughter Kathleen. She's in the driver's seat for me, but we're not driving, we're parked, so it's all good. But I often get asked questions about Hashimoto's because I have been very public about my journey with Hashimoto's, and I love to share information because what brought me from a place of where I couldn't function to where I am now, where I have energy and I'm able to be with my family and function and do, just be normal and have a normal life. And before I was here, when my thyroid was really giving me problems, it was oh, good grief. It seemed like it was just a dark tunnel and there was no light, no hope at the end of that tunnel. So if that is you, I want to share with you some information that will empower you to take charge of your health and get out of whatever dark tunnel you may be in. So that being said, what is Hashimoto's? Let's start there. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease where your immune system, for whatever reason, has decided to attack and destroy your thyroid gland. It has identified that your thyroid gland is an invader and needs to be taken out. And so over time, it just slowly destroys your thyroid gland until your thyroid gland is dead and cannot function at all. And getting a diagnosis of Hashimoto's is not necessarily an easy thing. A lot of times you will have all of the symptoms and you go in for lab work and your doctor says, oh, well, looking at your lab work, your lab tests are normal. Well, first of all, let's talk about what does normal mean. Okay, so normal for the thyroid varies from one lab to another lab. Okay, so just because your doctor, the lab that he uses, says that your thyroid labs are quote unquote normal, that does not mean that you actually are normal. Okay. So anytime you get your thyroid labs done, I suggest that you ask your doctor, okay, great, can I look at them? Can I have a printout of them? Take them home and look at them for yourself to see if you really are within normal range. And at the end of this little video, I'll talk about some great books and resources you can get a hold of that will talk about what normal really is, okay? Secondly, most of the time when a doctor says he does a thyroid panel, they'll do a TSH, a T3, and a T4, and that is it. They do not check for thyroid antibodies. Thyroid antibodies are when your body has made an antibody against the thyroid, indicating the immune system is attacking the thyroid gland because now it has antibodies against the thyroid gland. So if your doctor has not done thyroid antibodies on you, that is a huge piece to helping diagnose autoimmune Hashimoto's, and you need to insist that he do that. Doctors, for some reason, they do not like to do the thyroid antibody test. I and my oldest two children have a Hashimoto's, and my doctor knows this, and so with my other three children, I bring them in, I brought them in routinely to have their thyroid labs done, and he will write it out, and he still will not ask for the thyroid antibody to be done. And so when I go to the lab person who draws our labs, I know her personally, and I say, no, we need the antibodies too. She knows me, she knows our family, she does that, and it's no problem. But you may have to fight your doctor to get it done. And if your doctor does not want to do it, I suggest you go find another doctor who's willing to work with you, because if your doctor is smarter than the patient, then he doesn't have your best interest at heart. Because if he has your best interest at heart, he's going to listen to your concerns. And ordering a simple lab like thyroid antibodies, no skin off his nose, you're paying for it. So if he's not even going to do that much, that's an indication that you're not getting the best quality care possible. So I would find a different provider. But going back to thyroid labs, okay, so you're going to want to learn how to read your own thyroid labs. And again, I will mention some resources to help you do that. And you want to look at not just your TSH. What the TSH is, your pituitary gland in your brain makes your TSH. And the pituitary gland runs the endocrine system. And so the thyroid gland needs to make thyroid hormone for cells to function. The thyroid hormone is what gives your cells energy, your metabolism and your energy. So one of the first symptoms of low thyroid is the fact that your energy levels just tank. Okay, you have no energy because you have no thyroid hormone to run your cells to help your body function, okay? So your pituitary gland will make TSH, and it's basically, that's the pituitary gland's way of saying, hey, thyroid, we need more thyroid hormone. And so if your TSH is a high number, at one point mine was 150 plus, which is crazy because you don't want to be over a 4. Anything over a 4, your pituitary gland is basically screaming at your thyroid, please, we need thyroid hormone. Would you please function and give us some? Okay. So if you're over at least a 4, then you are low thyroid and you need to look at doing some things to support your thyroid gland because it's not functioning the way it needs to. Okay. So that's the first thing. That's what they look at is your TSH. But if you have Hashimoto's, they can look at your TSH, and your TSH can be within a genuinely normal range because you ride this roller coaster of ups and downs when you have Hashimoto's. So sometimes when your immune system is triggered by a cold or a flu or something like that, it will also attack your thyroid gland at the same time, and your thyroid gland is trying to make hormone. And essentially, this is not the most scientific explanation, but just the way to understand it is basically it's like it's got your thyroid in a death grip. And your thyroid is trying its best to function. And then whenever the immune system backs off, and then the thyroid can release a whole bunch of thyroid hormone. And so now you could actually be overactive thyroid for a little bit. And then as that hormone goes through the body and gets processed, your poor thyroid gland is tired because it's just been under attack and it's been trying to produce hormone, and it's been working really hard trying to produce hormone during this attack, and now it's tired and it's exhausted, and so down you go. And so you could be anywhere on that roller coaster and get labs drawn and actually have labs within normal range or even labs within a hyperthyroid range, and you still have Hashimoto's and you still end up tanking. You will always end up in a tanking place when you have Hashimoto's because your thyroid gland is overworked and it's getting tired, okay? So that's the first thing to understand about how that works. And you want to be able to know how to read your labs, but realize that labs are not just the ultimate in diagnosing you. If you have symptoms of Hashimoto's, which they range from extreme fatigue, brain fog. My son, he struggled with reading. I mean, we would have a sentence of like 10 words. He would sound out a word at the beginning of the sentence, have the same word at the end of the sentence. By the time he got to the end of the sentence, he didn't remember the word, couldn't remember how to sound it out. Once we got his thyroid treated and his thyroid gland was doing well, his reading, I mean, it totally changed and revolutionized him because he was now able to focus and the brain fog was gone. Okay, so brain fog, absent-minded, scatterbrained, all of those can be connected to your thyroid gland being cold because your metabolism creates heat in the body. So if you are perpetually cold when other people are not, or even colder than normal for you, that's a symptom. Again, the fatigue. I would be extremely tired when I woke up in the morning, and then I would make it kind of through the day, and then in the afternoon between 2 to 4 I would have what I call a crash, where I would just fall asleep. It was like my eyelids were made of lead. I could not keep them open no matter what I tried to do. I would conk out. And if that is you, in the afternoon between 2 to 4, if you can relate to that. And then in the evenings, I would feel fatigued and I would feel tired, but bedtime would roll around and I would lay there trying to go to sleep, and my brain would just be racing. I couldn't get my brain to shut down. And then I would finally drift off into sleep. Then again, between 2 to 4 in the morning, my brain would wake up and be just totally awake, and I couldn't get back to sleep again until right before the alarm went off, and then I'd go back to sleep. And so it's a horrible roller coaster. And I also had heart palpitations at times. I had shortness of breath, unexplained shortness of breath, where I would just be sitting on the couch with my kids and just couldn't get my breath. Or my husband would be driving, we'd be driving down the road and I couldn't catch my breath. Hot flashes. I was 33 years old and I was waking up at night with hot flashes and night sweats. And all of that was because of my thyroid. So those are some symptoms. If you're having those symptoms, again, it's your thyroid. And then fibromyalgia. At the root of fibromyalgia is a thyroid issue. Take care of the thyroid issue and the fibromyalgia will, I can't say necessarily go away, but it will get better. Let's say that, okay? I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to treat or diagnose anybody, so just be aware of that. Okay, so we talked about what is Hashimoto's. We've talked about you want to get a full lab panel done and drawn. And then if your doctor puts you on synthetic medications, okay, so the thing with synthetic medications, it's something that's made in the laboratory, okay? And so not every body responds to synthetic meds very well. A man-made hormone is not going to function in a God-made body the same way God made your thyroid own hormones to function, okay? And that was my problem. My cells could not use the synthetic hormone because like levothyroxine and synthroid, they're synthetic, and they are synthetic T4, and your body has, your cells actually take that T4 hormone and have to convert it to T3 in order to use it. So if you're taking levothyroxine and your cells are not able to convert it to T3, well, you have the thyroid hormone in your bloodstream, but your body can't use it, so you still have the symptoms, you still have the brain fog. And there again, you can go in and your lab tests can look normal because your body has the T4, so your pituitary gland is not screaming at the thyroid to make hormone because there's thyroid hormone there, but your cells are still not able to use it, so you still feel crummy, okay? I tried Cytomel, which is straight T3, synthetic T3. And that did help for a while, but it was like it would help for a little bit, and then my body would get used to it and not able to use it, and I would get back down into this, I would just tank again. So I was changing my meds like every 6 weeks, and I would feel better for a little bit after we changed the meds. My body would adjust, and I'd be right back down into that hole. Nature-Throid and Armor are desiccated pig thyroid hormone, and some people, their body's able to use that better than the synthetic levothyroxine or the Cytomel. So that is something you need to discuss with your doctor and think about. I never had an opportunity to try either of those because the doctor that was working with me for my Hashimoto's, very shortly after diagnosing me, he packed up his practice and moved. And so I went back to my family practitioner, and he said, oh, he looked at my thyroid labs. Oh, well, you don't, these lab tests show that you don't need this thyroid hormone. And he pulled me off of it cold turkey. And I had nothing to use, okay? And so at that time, I had friends that were talking to me about using essential oils and supplements and things like that for my thyroid, and that's what I started using, and it has been amazing and has been helpful to me. And I would be glad to talk with you one-on-one about that. I'm not going to include all of that in this video, just because, you know, what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. And that's another thing. We are not cookie cutter people. Every person is an individual, and your doctor needs to recognize that. What works for you is going to be different from what works for the other people that come through his office. And if he is not willing to work with you and to try to tweak things for you, then you need to find a doctor who will. Okay? That's just the way it is. I'm just blunt. Okay. So there are things that your thyroid needs in order to function, like nutritionally. Our foods are nutrient depleted. Way back in the 1950s, they testified on the floor of the House of Representatives that at that time our soils were nutritionally, minerally depleted. So the food that we were producing was depleted as well. So you're going to need to supplement your thyroid with selenium and zinc. And most people, they think if you have a thyroid condition that you need iodine as well. There's a debate about that. If you have Hashi's, your body can actually have enough iodine, and if you give it too much iodine, it can actually cause more of a problem. It can actually harm your thyroid because too much iodine in the body turns to hydrogen peroxide, basically. That's not all the science. I know there's a lot more detailed science. Anybody who's a science nerd out there, or a doctor or a nurse, I know you know there's a lot more technical stuff to this, but basically too much iodine can turn into hydrogen peroxide, and that can be very detrimental to your thyroid. So don't just assume that since you have low thyroid that you need more iodine. But you do need selenium and you do need zinc. Those are two minerals that your thyroid absolutely needs to function. You're going to need to look at your liver also. If you've had your gallbladder out, then your liver is stressed. You probably have a fatty liver because that is just a side effect. The liver has to pick up function for the gallbladder. Detoxifying the liver because the liver helps the cells to convert T4 to T3. Liver function is important in the conversion of hormones in the body. Okay? So then there's also your gut. Okay? If you have an autoimmune disease, most people who have an autoimmune disease also have a gut issue. You need to heal your gut. There are many things that I have read that indicate that the fact that people are intolerant to a lot of the genetically modified foods we have on the market today, and their gut gets holes punctured in it by different things, allergies to different foods. If you're allergic to a food and you continue to eat it, it's going to deteriorate the lining of your gut, and you're going to get leaky gut, where things from your stomach, your colon or whatever, are leaking into your body, and that's what initiates the autoimmune attack, because here are these foreign particles in your body. Your immune system doesn't know what it is because food was never supposed to be there, so your immune system wasn't designed to deal with that, but it knows it's a foreign invader, and so that's where the attack starts. What train of thought for many doctors and people in the naturopathic world. Okay, so you want to look at your gut, and I will say I really kicked and screamed about this, but gluten, if you have Hashimoto's, you need to stay away from gluten. Avoid gluten like it was leprosy. Okay, like if you ate something with gluten, it was going to give you leprosy. The best thing I did, it's been a journey for me piecing the puzzles together, and I have felt great. But one thing I did was last fall, I went grain-free, completely no grains, and that really, really helped to heal some things up for me and really propel me forward in some areas. So you might want to look at going grain-free, but if you don't go grain-free, you definitely need to go gluten-free. Something about gluten, the structure of gluten is very much like the structure of the DNA of a thyroid. And again, it's much more technical than that, I understand. So if most people who have thyroid issues like Hashimoto's, they also have a gluten intolerance. You may not be allergic to it, but you have a sensitivity to it. Our grain today, our wheat, our gluten today, it's all been genetically modified. Wheat back during the Little House of the Prairie times only had 14 chromosomes. Today wheat has 42 chromosomes because of all of the genetically modifying things they have done to the wheat. So it's not even the same thing that it was 100 years ago, and our bodies have a hard time processing that. If you have thyroid issues, stay away from gluten and look at things to do to heal your gut specifically. And lastly, don't sabotage yourself. Anything antibacterial. The chemicals that make something antibacterial also are what we call endocrine disruptors. So we talked about your thyroid hormone gets into your cells convert it into T3 to use it to run. It's the gas that runs the machines in your cells, okay? Well, in order for your thyroid hormone to get into your cells, it has to go through a thyroid hormone receptor. It's like a keyhole. The thyroid hormone is a key. It fits into that keyhole to get into the cell to perform a function. Antibacterial chemicals block those keyholes, so your thyroid hormone cannot get in there to function. Okay, so if you're using antibacterial soap, you're actually clogging those holes so that your thyroid hormone can't get into your cells to do what they're supposed to do. So you can actually make yourself low thyroid because you're clogging those holes in your cells. You're clogging those receptors, is what they're called, hormone receptors, so that your thyroid hormone can't even get in there. And so your cells have no thyroid hormone because the receptors are clogged with these chemicals, these antibacterial chemicals. Fluoride is another one. Fluoride is a big one. That it also is anything when you hear about an endocrine disruptor, that's what it means. Endocrine disruptors are chemicals that bind to those hormone receptors so that your hormones can't get into your cells to perform a function. That goes for thyroid hormones, that goes for female hormones, that goes for male hormones. If it's an endocrine disruptor, that's what it's doing. It is disrupting the endocrine system. It's blocking those receptors so hormones cannot get into your cells to do what God designed them to do. So don't sabotage yourself. Get rid of the fluoridated toothpaste. Get rid of anything antibacterial. Stay away from, be really careful. Be a label reader. You're going to have to be a label reader. And if you can't, if the word on the back of the bottle is too long for you to pronounce, Google harmful effects of in that word and see if it's an endocrine disruptor, because if it is, you want to avoid it. And then I said resources. So there are lots of books by Mary Shomon, Shomon. She is a great author. She herself has Hashimoto's. She has been reading and writing and researching about hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's for 20 years, I believe. And so she's a great resource. She has several different books that out there. She has, I believe she has a Facebook page. Lots and lots of good info from her. Isabella Wentz, Izabella, Isabella Wentz, Wentz. She has a book called Root Cause, which is talking about the root cause of Hashimoto's. She herself has Hashimoto's. She is a pharmacist herself, so she's going to have some really great info. And then Datis Kharrazian, Kharrazian. He's also another one who has put out a great book that explains how Hashimoto's works. All three of these authors will talk to you about thyroid labs, what is normal, what you need to have drawn, what they all mean, so that you can be equipped when you go into your doctor's office to take charge of your wellness, because that's what you need to do. The human body is so complicated, and what we know today about the human body is so much more than what we knew even 10 years ago. And, doctors, they literally cannot stay on top of all of the research that's out there. There's new research coming up all the time. And so it is totally up to you to take charge of your health. Do not trust your doctor to do it, because they just don't have time to do it effectively. So, that's my information for you. Again, if you have questions, message me, text me, call me. I'm always glad to talk and help in any way that I can. And I hope that you guys have a very blessed day.